You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Thank you for joining me here today on this Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday, where I'm going to go over 9 surprising facts that you probably don't know about your thyroid and also how it affects your overall metabolism. And remember, metabolism is not just about weight loss, it's about the natural functioning of the human body. So we're going to go through all of that today, displace a lot of myths out there right now about the thyroid, and really show you how the thyroid interacts with your levels of energy, levels of clarity and thinking, your cholesterol, your iron levels. It is intimately connected with every homeostatic system of your body. And by that I mean homeostatic systems are simply those symptoms that keep our body at an even keel, balanced, healthy, and living a long, healthy life. That's really what it's all about. So one of the things that I want to start with is this. If you've heard about your thyroid, but you don't really know what it's all about except for maybe, regulating body fat gain or loss, I want to share with you right now some symptoms that you may be suffering from if you have a lower thyroid, yet your blood work looks normal. So this is actually one of the 9, right? So I'm going to get into it right now. And I want to talk to you about this, is that so many people right now are underdiagnosed as having thyroid-based issues simply because their TSH, which is their thyroid stimulating hormone, that number is between 0.5 and 5 on your blood work. So here's the issue. 0.5 to 5 is a big range. Healthy is 0.5 to 2, maybe just a little bit above, to 2.5 maximum if T4 and T3 is normal. We'll get to those in a moment. But I'll tell you this, most doctors don't run T4 and free T3, free T4, free T3. Really important to look at, as well as those TPO antibodies. We've done a lot of podcasts on thyroid in the past. Today's going to pull together 9 facts, but there's more to listen to, especially if you believe you have some of these symptoms right now. So let's go over those first, because right now there are so many people, and I would say the majority of people who actually have a thyroid-based issue are underdiagnosed. And I would say that also goes with many people over the age of 40, 45 years old. And it's simply because they're in the 3 to 3.5 range, which means functionally low, hypothyroidism, which means low thyroid, but not diagnosed in the disease state. So they're not actually medicated. And I don't believe that that's necessarily the best way to go either. So let's go over right now symptoms of even functionally low thyroid. Poor body circulation. You may feel it as cold hands, cold feet, maybe even the cold tip of the nose, but it can also show up as brittle nails, drying skin, constipation, joint stiffness, especially, as you get going in the morning. It could be even things like decreased sweating. It's also a slowing of metabolic functions, a slowing of speech, a slowing of the nail growth, of the hair growth, thinning hair, which I just mentioned partially as well. A loss of taste or a loss of smell. Everything is just starting to slow down. Sometimes digestion can get very weak and get bloated from being low thyroid, from just having that lowered metabolic rate. Digestion is a metabolic function. Higher levels of cholesterol. That's an important one that's overlooked as well. Sometimes weight gain or water weight gain, kind of a puffiness of the overall face or a puffiness under the eyes. Really important to look at. And then, of course, brain fog and fatigue. Many of these are from hypothyroidism, and if not diagnosed, functionally low levels, which means you could be doing a whole lot better if you had the nutrients required to make that thyroid function properly. And we'll be talking about that on today's show. So now this is low thyroid. The opposite, which is much more rare, 1% or less of adults, okay? The opposite is true as well, though. It's hyperthyroidism. And this is rapid heart rate, fatigue. It might be heart palpitations, hands trembling, increased sweating. It could be insomnia, or the same ones for the hair loss, the thinning hair can also take place. Irregular bowel movements. It's more towards hyperactivity, whereas the hypothyroid, which most people trend towards that have thyroid issues. Now, remember, we're not talking about everyone. We're talking about somewhere around 8% or so of women, about 10% of overall general population. Many of those as they get older in life. Many people as they get older in life. So hypothyroidism is the lower activity, the slowing down of the body, the weakening of the body, the catabolism of the body. Because, again, those metabolic processes are more in a slower hibernation-based mode. Let's get into today. So that's basically fact number one, is that there's so many people out there right now, majority of people with thyroid issues, that are underdiagnosed because they're simply going by TSH alone. We need to look at free T4, free T3, and I would say TPO antibodies is a must as well. Okay, so as we're moving through this, I want to give you another one right now, is that your TSH can go up, or you can start to move towards lower thyroid. Again, let's just go over this one more time. TSH stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. Okay, now it's kind of it's a misnomer that the higher the level, the better the thyroid function. It's actually not true. The higher the level of your TSH, the lower your thyroid function, because it stands for thyroid stimulating hormone, which means that the body is stimulating the brain, the hypothalamus in particular, to tell the pituitary gland to tell the thyroid to make more thyroid, because the thyroid gland is going to make that T4. Okay? So it's really important to look at that. Higher the TSH, the lower the thyroid function. Important to look at that. The inverse is also true. So here's the thing, though. Your thyroid can slow or become dysfunctional for multiple reasons. Blood sugar dysregularity, the effect of the adrenals, and I did a podcast on how the adrenals affect the thyroid, which is so important if you haven't listened to that podcast, because most thyroid issues that I see come from leaky gut, intestinal permeability, or increased HPA axis dysfunction, which simply means adrenal stress or adrenal fatigue for most people's way of looking at it, which is perfectly valid. Okay? Chronic inflammation, higher levels of estrogen or weight gain, obesity. And then also comes along with this is leptin and insulin resistance. All of this can lower TSH. And trust me, by the end of this podcast, I will pull it together. I'm never a person to just state all of the things that could be wrong without giving you some type of action step, usually multiple to choose from, of how you can start to right the ship and get your body back balanced again. And I'm telling you right now, unless you've had your thyroid removed, most people are going to be able to completely recover from thyroid-based issues and not have to rely on medication. I truly believe that. And I would not say to you if I didn't believe that for the majority of people, and it's simply because that's what we've seen over and over in our practice. But you need to look at the underlying root causes, and we're already starting to look at those, okay? Obesity, high levels of stress, insulin resistance, leptin-based resistance. So let's look at blood sugar dysregulation, right? Very important to look at. Okay. The next one is this, is that much of the time, we're doing everything right, but unless you've looked at your mineral levels, unless you know what your selenium levels are, what your vitamin B6 levels are, what your zinc levels are, you don't know if you can actually even make the hormone T3. T3 is the active form of thyroid. Okay, like that's what really matters. Think about this. Like you're all set. You're ready to go for a run outside. You're ready to do your sprints outside in the city. It's all concrete. It's asphalt. It's cement, all that. And you're ready. You'll go out there and you'll do it, but you're not going to be at your best if you don't put on sneakers. Running barefoot on concrete, not going to optimize, right? So T3 is the optimized way to get out there. It's the optimized form that your body needs to boost your metabolism, right? You need to be prepped, and it is certain minerals and vitamins that lead that charge. Remember, in conventional medicine, they simply leave out everything between A and Z. It's either you have a diagnosis of a disease or you don't. And if you do, well, then you give medication. Well, what about everything that led to that? And what about everything in the middle that can help to rebalance it? So here's the thing. If you run a thyroid adrenal hormone, it tells you your T4, T3, TPO antibodies. It tells you your cortisol, tells you about insulin, tells you about hemoglobin A1C, tells you about vitamin D. That's what doctors should be giving their patients. But they don't. One reason, it's not taught in school to them, so they don't do it. And the second is that health insurance is not going to cover that, right? So it's not going to be covered in that same way, which is too bad, right? I mean, it really is, because at the end of the day, we could be helping so many more people. And I mean, the truth is this, that less money would be spent with health insurance if the body was balanced in the first place. So everybody wins, in my opinion. And I know medical doctors want to help people get well. So I just think that this is what we need to do. A hair tissue mineral analysis. Easy way to look at if you have enough selenium and zinc. Very, very easy. You could do it with a urine test too if you wanted to. Another way is this. Run the organic acids test. Find out what your levels of B vitamins are. I mean, it tells you. It's literally black and white. It's what I call just a binary-based decision or data point. It's not even a decision. If you're low in zinc and selenium and you're low in B6 and you have low thyroid, wouldn't it make sense to supplement with those to help with conversion? I mean, in my opinion, the answer would be yes. I mean, that's how I look at it. That's why a lot of people say, well, I don't know if you can really help me. Like, there's no guesswork. I want people to really understand that. There's no guesswork. This is not, well, let's add a dash of this and a little bit of a sprinkle of that. That's not how you help people get well. And I know there are practitioners out there and they're well-meaning. They are, but we don't need to guess. I mean, we can figure this out. And again, like the starter kit's an easy way to do that, but there are other methodologies, and you could also just supplement if you wanted to. I mean, that's why we have those daily foundational protocols, level 1, level 2, and level 3. It's going to give you the nutrients that you need. If you need more, you add a little bit more. The labs tell you that, though. And that's, again, this is why I'm so big on this, because I don't care which functional medicine company you use, but it has to be a functional medicine company. You can't get the supplements at Target and Sam's Club and GNCs and all those places. They're not functional medicine brands. They don't third-party test. They're not going to be the absorbable forms. But just use a company that already does that. Why not? Well, I mean, what it costs maybe, and when you break it down, 50 cents more a day. I'm not exaggerating. About 50 cents more a day. Like, that's it. And you get what's actually going to work. And then the results are, I mean, it's night and day. It's completely different because what works, works. That's basically the bottom line, right? All right, let's move on to the next one. Move off that rant for a second. The second is this. If you're already on thyroid medication, most people are not maximizing their thyroid medication. And here's why. And again, your doctor most likely never told you this, is that they don't take their thyroid medication at the same time every day, which should be upon waking. And they take food or drink, or they take it with juice, or they take it with something that impairs the absorption. Okay? So if you're using your thyroid medication, again, I'm not a licensed medical doctor, nor do I pretend to be, nor do I choose to be, or any of those things. So here's the thing. I can't give you medical advice on a podcast. I'm not here to cure disease, treat disease, diagnose disease. What I'm here to help you do is to truly heal forever, for the lifetime of permanence. So you don't need these things. But what I'm saying to you is this. Talk with your doctor. Maybe they'll be able to share with you that you should not eat anything else. It should be water only, really, with your thyroid medication for 1 hour upon waking before you put anything else in your stomach. And that's because, again, this is clinically studied. Most people are only getting about 60 to 80% of the thyroid effectiveness from their medication. And most people are just taking T4. They're not even taking the activated form T3. So think about that. One, they can't even convert it to T3, which is why they're still low. So what does your endocrinologist do? They just give you a higher dose of T4. Well, I mean, shouldn't it tell you if you need more T4 that you're not converting it in the first place? I mean, that would be my thought process, but that's not always the case. The other part is this. There's so many people out there with H. pylori. Again, we already know this. We've talked about this so many times. But H. pylori or low stomach acid will not allow you then to properly absorb your thyroid medication. You need stomach acid. How many people are on proton pump inhibitors, PPIs, acid blockers, acid neutralizers, right? Well, when you do that, you cut down the effectiveness of your medication. There are other various medications that I'm not going to go into today that if you take multiple medications at the same time, it can also slow or impair your absorption of thyroid hormone. It's important to look at these things. And again, if you're going to be taking pharmaceuticals, you have to know what you're getting into. And again, my philosophy is this: we can't tell you to wean off of them, but what we can show you to do is how to optimize your own thyroid function. And then as you start to lower your TSH to below 1, then you can begin to wean off with your endocrinologist, not come off cold turkey, but taper off with your endocrinologist and under their guidance. And then you'll be able to just use the nutritional supplements. And then once your stores are filled, you'll be able to wean off most of the nutritional supplements as well. Probably just maintain, again, with that daily foundation protocol of your choice. And that's the way that we do it. This is real world, and it really works. And so that's, again, I want you to have these same results if you want. Or again, I'm almost guaranteeing you right now, if you talk with people, you become aware inside of your sphere of people that you know that you're close with, not just, random people, but that you're close with, you're going to know a couple people with low thyroid, functionally low thyroid or actually medicated, because it's such a huge percentage of people. Just in the United States, what are we looking at? About 30 million people? It's a huge percentage. So this is important to look at, really important. And especially since low thyroid disguises itself. Just like yesterday, I talked about the disguises of detox. So hopefully you talked about that yesterday. It's basically the most common symptoms of that you need a detox that most people they pin onto something else, right? They just, it's just age, it's just stress, it's just lack of sleep. No, there are real reasons why. Don't ignore them. Ignore them at your own peril. I did it for many years. I don't want that to happen to you. So let me name some of those. So one of them is this. This is really important. Higher levels of cholesterol, weight gain, water retention, all of that can be linked to low thyroid, hypothyroidism. Again, diagnosed or just what we call it functionally low. From a clinical perspective, you have all the symptoms of low thyroid. Do we need to really wait for blood work to tell you have low thyroid? Why don't we just give you what your thyroid needs in order to function? Another big one is this, and most people will never find this, that things such as chlorine or fluoride that you would get in tap water can lower thyroid in susceptible people. Now, again, others can drink a gallon of tap water a day and their thyroid won't lower, but susceptible people it will. And that's the thing is there's not an all for one. I don't think anybody should drink a gallon of tap water a day. The chlorine is still harmful to your gut bacteria, etc. But the halogen group, those fluorides, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, all of those can block thyroid function, can block iodine. It displaces it. You get to choose one or the other in your body, right? You get receptors for halides, basically, halogen-based molecules. And if you're swimming in a chlorinated pool, if you're breathing in chlorine vapors, if you're drinking tap water, well, it can displace good thyroid. And that includes whether you're on medication or not. So even if you just want to take medication the rest of your life, at least maximize it, at least get the most out of it. That'll be helpful as well. And you can share that again with parents, with children, with loved ones out there that just need to get the most out of it. So watch for toxicity. Again, you can run these labs. You can run toxicity tests for these things, or you can just start to cut out of a lot of these toxins out of your life. Do a detox. All of it's helpful. Okay, really, really important. Another one is this. Make sure you know your iron levels. This is kind of a bonus one because I wasn't even planning on adding this, but I talked about this on a Friday review. And that's why every podcast I try to build off of all the others. But this happens predominantly in women, okay? But it can happen in men, but it's predominantly in women, which, by the way, thyroid affects much more women, at least an 8-to-1 ratio of women and men. So it's important to look at it. What are your ferritin levels? Transferritin. What's your total iron binding capacity? Ferritin's the most important number on that. But again, ferritin levels might not always say low, but they're on the lower side. And it can affect the ratio of your T4 to T3. You need iron to be able to convert thyroid. But again, we never talk about that. All we say is, TSH is getting higher. Let's just give them a higher dose of thyroid medication. Well, what if you have low iron? No matter how much thyroid medication you give someone, it's not fixing low iron. It doesn't work that way. It simply does not work that way. So we need to look at one more mineral, one more nutrient that our body needs, and that's iron. Especially for women that still have their menstrual cycle. Again, this is why it's more common to be anemic, because you are literally losing blood on a monthly basis. And with that comes iron, comes B vitamins, comes everything, right? But we need to understand that from a homeostatic perspective, that if you are menstruating that you're losing iron and that you need to replace that. And it's even more important for women that are more of a plant-based or vegan-based diet. You just have to be more aware. And I've done a podcast on plant versus animal iron, how to get it from each. And both can be effective. I mean, the iron supplement that we are currently offering Equilibrium Nutrition is plant-based. It's completely plant-based as well. And it's very absorbable. So it's a nice way to do it. It's not even the Equilibrium Nutrition brand, but we just promote whatever, that's it. Whatever's best for people. That's what we want to do. Because at the end of the day, like, that's our mission, right? Our mission is, how do we help people? How do we help them in the fastest and safest way possible? And then how do we get them to get those results to stick? Because sometimes you can get a lot of results, but you can kind of get them in that fast and dirty way. It's like, okay, I'll do it. I'll get the results. I'll starve myself. I'll over-exercise. I'll do whatever. But it affects you in the long term. And then you're just back at square one in a couple weeks or a couple months or a couple years. And we don't want that to happen to you. So it's kind of like, yeah, we want to help you. And how do we do that from both a short and long-term perspective? Okay, just a couple more because I want this to be an overall, how does the thyroid work, and probably things that you've never been told about your thyroid. And this is really important because it affects overall metabolism. Okay, I've talked about it before, but this bears repeating. There's two ways that we see the gut become dysfunctional. One, leaky gut intestinal permeability. You can run that with a stool test. That will show you H. pylori, bacteria. It will show you parasites. You can run it with an organic acids test. That will show you yeast overgrowth and bacteria and Clostridia as well. But what happens is when the gut becomes permeable, that leads to many, and I would say most of the autoimmune diseases of the body we have right now. So if you have Hashimoto's, or if you haven't tested your TPO antibodies on the thyroid adrenal hormone, you very well may have an autoimmune-based thyroid issue. Or it could be growing, and you'll see that on those TPO antibodies. That's mainly from leaky gut intestinal permeability. Now, the other form, though, of lowered thyroid can come from a lot of the deficiencies. And that's the selenium and the zinc and the B vitamins and the iron, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Vitamin C, which helps with absorption as well. So that can be tested, of course, but that happens from stress. So one, autoimmune, leaky gut intestinal permeability. The other form of thyroid issues, not always autoimmune-based, Hashimoto's or Graves', but it's coming from stress. Really important to look at that. And your cortisol levels, even a hair tissue mineral analysis, it will show your levels of stress from your electrolytes. Do not overlook the power of at-home functional medicine lab testing. Work with your local functional medicine doctor, but they have to know about this because what matters is who's reading your labs. It's not just the lab, it's what are they giving you for a protocol based on your labs. Or work with your local integrative health practitioner. Our level 2s specialize in this. Or work with one of the lab purchases from equilibriumnutrition.com. Whatever works for you, whatever's easiest, but get the answers that you deserve. Check out the big 5 labs that we offer. It will tell you everything. You'll be able to see inside of your body, and you'll have the data points on what to do. And the reason why I share with this, and I'm very passionate about it, is that I suffered for 2 years until I found out what these labs were. So at 17 years old, I had all the issues. Conventional medicine couldn't help me. They could give me pharmaceuticals, but 2 years later, found a doctor that it was much more rare. 20 plus years ago, they're using, or about 20 years ago now, they're using functional medicine lab tests that were basically unheard of in 1998, 1999, right around there. And if it wasn't for them, I don't know how I would have ever gotten better because they showed me what my imbalances are. Food sensitivities, adrenal-based issues. That was the first time I found out what that was all about. Toxicities, high levels of mercury. I mean, it was all there. It was there at 17 years old. It was there at 12 years old. But I never ran these labs. I didn't know about them. But when I did, that's when the healing process started. Part of the problem was the doctor who first gave them to me, always be very thankful for him, but didn't have all the answers. And that's okay. That's okay. Got me started. Got me into this world. Then I got deeper and I figured, oh, here's what you do. Here's what you do. And it was the protocols based on those labs that rebalanced my body. So I will never stop promoting these labs and the ability to figure out what's going on inside of your body. All right, couple more to go right now today. And that's this, is that if you want to begin to improve your overall thyroid function, you have to think beyond the current paradigm of just pump more thyroid into the body. I want you to start with everything that ails you right now as to why. Why do you have insomnia? Why do you have rosacea? Why do you have acne at 35 years old? Why are you getting thinning hair? Why are you getting skin rashes? Why do you have psoriasis and eczema? Why do you have bloating? Why do you have gas? Why can't you sleep at night? Why are you gaining weight and you can't lose it, right? Or why can't you gain weight? Why do you have a high cholesterol? You can't say it's genetic. It's not an excuse that I will allow. It's not. Remember, it's not okay. And here's why. It is genetic. But that's not ultimately what caused this. It just means it's in your genes. You probably didn't have high cholesterol at 8 years old. Why? Maybe even eating worse at 8 years old. I mean, think about how many kids are. So the answer is, it's never based on just genetics. Genetics are simply what loads the gun, as they say. And it's the environment that you've been in as you filled up your rain barrel that eventually pulls that trigger. And then you have the dis-ease, right? It's no different than thyroid. You just have to ask why. Why am I having, again, there is high thyroid, but most people are lower thyroid. Why do I have these low thyroid symptoms? If I do have low thyroid, why do I have low thyroid? Is it leaky gut, intestinal permeability? Is it gluten-based sensitivity? It's very common. Is it higher levels of cortisol and stress? Is it lower levels of zinc or selenium? Is it higher levels of fluoride or chlorine or bromines? Lower levels of iodine. That's a big one. I mean, how many people eat sea vegetables? Almost no one. Where are we getting our iodine from? It's important to look at that because, again, there's always a reason why. So if you haven't found out your answer, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. You just haven't found out your answer yet because someone hasn't gone deep enough as to your why. But it's out there. And yes, sometimes it's frustrating. Believe me, it can be frustrating. I was there for a decade. I know about frustration. So trust me. But you have to keep working the process and asking the question as to why. And eventually you can't go any deeper. And as you can't go any deeper, then you simply work the process in order to heal. All right. Before I leave you today, I want to give you one more. And just one more that we should think about is this. Is that it's never just typically one thing that imbalances your health and sets you off onto a path of dis-ease. So if you're working with any practitioner, your local naturopathic doctor, your local functional medicine doctor, and don't fall for that term because I'm probably going to stop using it. Too many people use the term functional medicine doctor or practitioner now. It doesn't hold any weight like it used to. But if you're working with naturopathic doctor or you're working with an integrative health practitioner or someone that knows their stuff, right? That knows what they're doing. They will show you, and I don't want you, so here's what I was getting at. Don't ask them, what's the one thing that I can do? It's never typically one thing. I wish it was that easy. We're in the mentality of a pill for every ill. Low thyroid, take levothyroxine or some type of thyroid-based medication. Oh, you have high cholesterol? Take this statin. You have high blood pressure? Take this beta blocker, calcium channel blocker, etc. You have acid reflux? Okay, take this acid blocker. Prilosec, Zantac, whatever your favorite one is. You have migraines? Take this. You have this? Take this. That is not natural health, though. And natural health doesn't even work like that. So we have to make sure, though, that you understand that no matter who you work with, it won't be a take this one thing or do this one thing and you'll be all better. No. It's typically a rebalancing, again, of those homeostatic systems. I talk about this in the rain barrel effect in depth. It's called the de-stress protocol. What's it do? Diet, exercise, stress reduction, toxin removal, rest, emotional balance. It's supplement protocols, and it's success mindset. Now, there'll be different varying levels for everyone. Everyone doesn't have to jump into a 5-day-a-week exercise program, but you should start moving your body. Work up to 5,000 steps a day of walking, then 6, then 7, then 8, then 9, then 10. Work your way up. So I just invite you today. Today wasn't even about the thyroid. It's about, I could pick apart any disease in the world. And I'm happy to do that in the future. I can pick apart any disease you want. High cholesterol, high blood pressure, skin-based issues, autoimmune, etc. All it is we're asking why. What are all the different failure points within the body before the disease, the dis-ease manifests itself? And that's it. Now we give the disease a name because then we can give it a medication and we can bill insurance. But I want more for you. I want you to understand that you are not your disease, but you are all of the root causes that led to this disease manifestation. The filling up of the rain barrel. I want to help you empty that rain barrel and also then replace all of those deficiencies that you have. If you do this, there's no doubt in my mind that you can heal. So I'm not going to point you to specific labs today. You know what they are. You've listened to the podcast. You know what it's all about. Make the right choice for you and your family and your loved ones. And if that just means gathering more information, that's fantastic. Do that until you feel you're ready to commit. Then make that decision. Commit and get well. And get well once and for all. Follow a program that's going to see it through. That you don't just mask the symptoms again, right? That this has a short and long-term solution. So we will do our best to point you in the right direction. Today's show notes are over at stephencabral.com/1223. That's stephencabral.com/1223. We'll link up a couple thyroid-specific podcasts over there. We'll link up some lab tests, but in general, you can always search the database at stephencabral.com/podcast. Go back to all previous episodes. You will learn from those. You will become a master of taking control of your health. And then everything we offer, my private practice is now online. Anything that you want, you can get now over at equilibriumnutrition.com. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Of course, if this was helpful, please do feel free to pass along to anyone else you believe it could serve. Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests, or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.